Melissa's laptop.
Can you hear me, Becky?
Oh, I can. I can see you.
Oh, double whammy.
I'm just printing out one thing.
Okay. Let's see if I can get myself a little more onto the screen. There we go. Hold on. Let's try the other side. I may change rooms, but when I do, I won't make anyone car sick. I will put my video down and walk.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so that's the side I put my email up on. So maybe if I do it this way.
Uh-oh, where did Zoom go?
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah,
There
we're
you are.
here.
I buried you in 14 emails. Here we go. Oh, and we still get the Christmas tree. That's
I
fine.
know, isn't that nice?
Yeah, so it'll probably be up until March, you know. It's
So
more
that-
of a winter tree because it's got, you know, it does have Merry Christmas on it, but it's a little more of a winter tree because it got bears. See the bears and their Santa
I
hats?
do see.
One way.
They're so
See
cute.
bears with Santa hats? Pine cone berries. Here, I'll give you a close up. See if I can do that.
They are so fun.
I put our tree out on the
Oh,
porch, and it's nice having it out there.
The
Oh,
front
look
part?
at that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I fired the angel years ago. She didn't match.
No, we don't need the angel stuff.
Well, you know, and it just didn't fit really who Chris and I are. So, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's more fun. And this way, it's not really Christmas. It's more a woodland tree. So if it's up until March, it's still okay and acceptable.
And it doesn't cost any taxpayer money.
And why not?
And
I think
obviously, it's not real if I'm leaving it up that long. So
but we need cheer these days. It's
we
dark-
do. And that was
dark
part
days
of
of
the
winter.
reason it went up so early and probably will stay up so late.
Yep.
I used
I-
to have the excuse of admission. I was so busy in the month of January and February. There was no way I had time for the tree to take it down. Not in admission anymore.
No, you're sure not.
No.
Right. So, is everybody here yet? Am I
Oh,
early?
we're waiting on Rita, I think. I should
Is she gonna
change
come
my,
today?
yes, I talked to her yesterday.
Okay.
Hi, Michael and Susie and Don.
Hi, Becky.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
I wonder if we'll ever do these in meetings in person again.
I know, right?
Here's Rita.
Hi, Rita.
We still have a couple minutes. April, do you wear your headphones too, like Michael?
Yeah, well, I find it's easier to hear this way, and then it doesn't disturb Alan. But you can still hear him, I think. And he's working in the other room. I think they look really cool.
Michael, is it more comfortable? It keeps your families more comfortable. They can be doing what they're doing without interruption.
I don't know if it's that. It feels like I tend to shout in the computer if I don't have them on, so it feels like I can just talk. And then I can go really far back too, and you can still hear me.
Whoa. I'm connected.
Are they wireless, Michael?
No, they just like have a 6-foot long cord. So, and it helps, like some laptops have really crappy microphone or headphones. So this actually helps if you have mine. I just got a new computer, unfortunately, but my old one, this was good.
It's a good look.
Thanks. That's why I do it. And the hat.
The hat, too. The hat really makes it.
Yeah. Yes, follically challenged men without hair in the winter need a hat.
Totally.
But if you notice, they all tend to be able to have a sweater on their faces.
Yes.
Well, it's important.
It is. Chris says the reason he doesn't shave is because if nature wants to give me a sweater, who am I to say no?
I like that.
Yeah, I think he said that was his reply when someone says, "Why don't you shave your beard?" He goes, "Well, you know, nature wants to give me a sweater and it's winter. Why would I say no?"
Exactly.
Okay, is it 5:30? Rita's here. Okay, everybody, is everybody ready?
It's showtime.
I'm gonna try to get my camera situated so I can, there we go. Okay. Does anyone have any adjustments to the agenda or additions? Becky, did anything pop up?
No, I think we're good to go.
Looks good.
All right, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
pop up the agenda real quick. Oops. And I opened up the wrong one. Okay. Shall we call ourselves to order?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. As soon as I get the agenda up, we can. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's open it up to public comment. And I'll change my screen so I can see everybody. Does anyone have any public comment? Please raise your hand so I have a visual. Okay, I saw Dawn's first.
Okay, real quickly, I was notified yesterday that Eversource is planning on tree pruning again, another round of it. Again, they wouldn't give me the date, but they said sometime this spring, they're planning on pruning the road below Atkins Reservoir, and it looks like all the way out to High Point as well. I'm not sure. That probably affects your house. I'm not sure how many houses it's going to affect, but it's going to be a few.
Okay.
That was my first thing. I have one more item. 449 West Pelham Road. That's Diane Houston's house. There are 2 large maple trees that I have deemed as hazard trees. I informed Tim and asked him if we could use our town budget. This will be the first tree this year on town budget to remove one of those trees. I have gotten National Grid to agree to remove the larger of the maple trees. However, there seems to be some sort of an issue about the larger tree because it has 2 guy cables that attach to the large telephone pole set at the end of Baker Road. I would like the select board, if you guys can do this sort of site visit thing, to look at the guy cables on the larger maple. Tim agrees with me that this is a hazard tree. It's dropped a piece on Diane's house in the past, and it looks like it's decaying right where the cables are attached. The electric company has agreed to remove the tree, but won't remove the cables. The cables are a pretty bad road hazard. And all I can imagine, and I've actually thought of this during the last storms, if we get icing on the wires it could be heavy enough to pull those guy wires out of the tree and into the road. And someone might discover that at 3 o'clock in the morning, the hard way. I really need the select board's eyes on this. And if you see the same hazard that I see, perhaps we can write a joint letter to National Grid to bump this up on their list for removals. Their disagreement is over removing the tree with the cables.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm familiar with those trees. I live just above them.
So if you get a chance, just take a look-see and see where the cables are attached, and you'll see how rotted out that section is. It is a real hazard tree.
Thank you, Don.
Melissa, I
Thank
had a question.
Go ahead, Rita.
So Don, what purpose do those cables serve now? Are they holding the tree in place, or?
No, they're stabilizers for the telephone pole across the street, which has a bunch of transformers and some heavy wires on it. Some of the wires in town, or some of the junctions in town, telephone pole junctions, occur at the end of streets. And there's just a lot of apparatus hung on that pole. Well, you get a good ice storm and it puts a lot more weight on those lines, and it makes the pole flex back and forth. Those guy cables are supposed to stop it from doing that. And if I had my druthers, they would remove the cables and place them on the other side of the road on Baker Road where they belong, not going across a main road like West Pelham. That's just silly, and they're obviously very old cables.
Okay, good, thank you.
Sure.
Usually, Rita, most of the telephone poles have the guide wires down near the pole or into the woods.
Exactly.
On the same side of the street.
On the same side of the street. That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Unless you guys got further questions, I'm going to cut out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Next person for public comment. I think I saw Michael's hand next.
Thank you.
Then I'll have to ask others.
Hi, everybody. So I was just following up on my email to you all from December 23rd about state statute and solar. I don't know if this rings a bell. I think, Melissa, this was the one you responded to me for, and apologize for being late, but I thought
Yeah.
I would just do the substance of it.
Okay.
So this has come up in discussions over the last few years, but the statute, which I believe is chapter 184, section 23C, is the one that is from the 70s that basically says that solar can't be regulated. And, there's been discussion about changing that to be reasonably regulated, so that, because the idea in the 70s was it was really about rooftop solar as opposed to commercial solar. And that was sort of the language that kept us initially in other towns from developing a solar bylaw. So there was discussion about clarifying that. And then the subsequent part, which I know Becky's aware of, Donna raised the issue with the planning board somewhere in the last year that, we get a pilot from the Wheelock track, and there's some solar development company that in the last 6 months or so has challenged the idea of having to pay taxes based on this statute, and basically saying that because solar developments can't be regulated, they can't be taxed. And it's right now it's being debated. I don't know where in the legal process it is, but Becky would know.
Still passed.
So that's what I was wondering. So is it the thing?
Waiting for Governor Baker to sign it.
So this is the conference committee thing.
It passed the House and Senate yesterday.
Yeah.
It's sitting on Governor Baker's desk. And all the wording that the Mass Association of Assessing Officers wanted regarding solar is included in it. And it legalizes taxing all commercial solar operations like Wheelock.
Cool.
Either direct personal property tax or a pilot.
Terrific. That was
And It legitimizes home systems still remain exempt. Any small business, 25 kilowatts and under, that can supply up to 125% of its needs is exempt. Basically, the people that were exempt stay exempt. And we have now codified into law something the assessors are trying to get for 5 years, which is as soon as Governor Baker signs it, once and for all commercial, large-scale solar in the state is taxable.
Cool. And can be regulated, I would assume, if you can tax it, that you're allowed to regulate it.
The bill also calls for the Department of Revenue to give assessors a standard by which to assess them if you don't have a pilot. So that'll probably take another year for the DOR to come out. But I'm
Okay.
sorry to jump in, but I'm on the MAO Legislative Committee, and we were all emailing each other last night in delirium that it had passed the House and Senate. Came out of committee on Monday morning, and they voted, both houses voted in the afternoon.
Cool. Yeah, I saw the email from Joe about the bill, and I wasn't sure. I appreciate you jumping in, Kevin. I was going to say, if it wasn't in the bill, this would be the time to sort of engage Joe and Natalie on it, but it sounds like.
Becky and
we're
I
good.
have complete copies of the entire climate change bill. Believe me, it's only about 30 lines in about 30 text lines in about a 60, 70 page legislation.
Could one of you mind sending it to me and I'll share it with the
I-
planning board? That'd be great.
I
Cool.
support-
Thank you. I'm all done.
Becky has a 4-sentence summary from our legislative guy, as well as a copy of the bill with me pointing out the line numbers and section.
Right.
So
So
Becky,
Becky,
if you could forward those.
Mhm.
Sorry I got on late. I was on another Zoom call, but it is, from the assessor's standpoint, it is fantastic news, although we know some company will appeal it.
okay. So the only other thing I'm curious about, Becky, maybe you have an interpretation with the regulation, so the language that was existing, it said you couldn't regulate it. So does this de facto mean that one could have a bylaw that's reasonably regulating commercial solar?
I didn't read for that.
That
question.
wording is not in there.
I have to go back. I don't know if they changed it to reasonably regulated or not. Do you?
The wording we had put in solely involves assessing it, what is and what is not accessible. We didn't go into regulation at all, but I have not read the rest of the bill, which goes down to, the amount of flush power in a sink and a toilet. Like I said, 66 pages, and maybe Michael, you want to get into it. I really just delved into the part that dealt with assessing.
Okay. Well, then
Yeah.
I guess I'll just say then, if you guys send it to me or I just look it up, the thing that I would just say is, since the legislative session is going to start in January, that would be the time to sort of ask Natalie and Joe to file bills, just, because basically the language that is in there says that solar can't be regulated, which is why all the towns for a whole bunch of years didn't want to create any bylaws, because, towns are risk adverse, and so they didn't want to go there. So I'll look at it. Becky, maybe mostly I wanted to find out what had happened, so I wasn't stepping on any toes. So Becky, I'll just talk to you.
Yeah, Michael, I will just warn you, it took us 6.5 years to get 3 sentences changed. And they decided to do everything in the climate change bill. The feedback we got is the legislature's not going to want to touch anything to do with energy
For
a
another
couple
6 years.
because
right.
they rolled it all into, this bill is the kitchen sink.
Cool.
It's all there.
That's great. Okay, I'll look at it. Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate that.
Okay, I apologize for jumping in and coming in late.
I'm
All
done.
right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment, please raise your hand. Ria, I saw you next. Go ahead.
Happy New Year, everybody. I hope 2021 is better than ever. I'm coming to this meeting with a couple questions regarding protocol within the town. I've been meeting with a number of residents, and we've been trying to work on a better understanding of communication from the board, and also specifically the police chief. And moving forward into 2021, we were wondering, one, how does one get on the agenda for a select board meeting? There was an email sent to the select board, I think 2 emails from our small resident group here, and there was no replies. So
I'm
I-
not sure if we ever, who did it come from and when? Because I'm concerned, I don't recall seeing anything.
well, one of the gals here is on Zoom right now. You can see Mary Jo right there. She sent an email to the select board. So
Mary Jo, can you tell me when you sent it?
It was a while ago, I think maybe 6 weeks or so. And basically my question was regarding any kinds of policies, or now I've heard you mention bylaws. Just kind of a question about what's in writing about the way that the town and the police relate, because we just were looking for information.
and if I could layer that a little bit further, so
Okay.
it's our understanding that this year, 2021, the police chief contract is up for renewal. And we're trying to have an understanding how that process moves forward. If there's input from the community and if there's dialogue and who is charged with that, perhaps it's the personnel board, we're not sure. Is there an employee handbook? We're, as residents, we can access that handbook. And our understanding was that the police chief was to have in their his contract community meetings. There was one community meeting that we know of, and then no other community meetings that took place, certainly over the course of 2020, which was a pretty electrified year to reach out to the community. So there's one successful meeting, and actually he did meet with our group too, albeit he was not visible, which was unfortunate, unlike most of us here. So we're trying to get a little bit more info on how that is organized and who's charged with that communication, so that as community members, we could kind of create a liaison of sorts so that we could get some input. We could know that our input is being received and that we could be better members to the police department in town and vice versa. But we're having a really difficult time finding any of that within the town of Shutesbury. So perhaps you could direct us on that. And I know that this is an open piece right here. We're not really on the agenda, but we have been trying to get a hold of the select board. And that's why a number of us are on right now, just trying to find what's up with that. So
Yeah, sorry, Rhea, I searched for Mary Jo's email, and the last one I see was back in October. Did you send it back in October, Mary Jo? Do you remember?
I think there was 2 emails actually that went out.
And was it from her email address, or did your group have a email address you used?
No, we don't have anything like that. But I mean, there was an email that, you know, we could track that down. But at this point, moving forward, how do we proceed to get on the agenda to be able to discuss things? And so we're not taking up all your time for your important issues tonight.
Usually the email to the select board or even contact with Becky.
And you
So-
can use the phone. The phone works really good. Then you know if you know, we connect.
Yeah, I know the phone's great, but some of us like to kind of keep, you know, our files of when we're sending out emails. And so is it my understanding then that emails don't get answered and the only way to do this is via the
No,
phone?
not at all. Not at all. Emails, if they're directed to the select board cannot respond to them until they have a meeting.
Okay,
If you make an inquiry about an agenda and if it goes to me, I can talk it through with them at the next meeting. So emails do get responded to. My frustration at this moment is we haven't seen the emails you're speaking of. And so I'm concerned whether, you know, why that is happening.
okay. So following up with that, we'll get squared away to that. So we need to contact Becky or the select board in general through the phone. Is there an employee handbook in town that we could access as residents, and where might that be?
The handbook is has
Online?
only been distributed to employees in the past. That it is currently has updates that have to be made to it. It's a very basic handbook outlining vacation and, discipline policies.
Sick
Um,
time.
And the select board, I mean, the personnel board lost its chair. They're working on making the updates to it. And when we reprint, we hope to do it in a way that we can put it online. Right now, the way it folds, it's very difficult to read through. But it's a project that's on the personnel board's agenda to get that up on, most towns don't put their personnel handbook on the website, but it's very basic information, and there's, outlining what vacation days are had and things like that. And so it's, the select board would have to decide, and the personnel board would give them input about putting it online, but
Got it. Yeah.
it'll go through a process. It's currently not online.
So since we're trying to have a better understanding how the police department works in town, we knew that Tom Harding had posted all the different calls. And so, as we're looking at budget, we could have a better understanding as residents how money is being spent and how best to support the police. But we're not seeing that with the current chief. So these are some of the things that we're trying to have a better understanding of, and coming to all of you here in this meeting, looking for that assistance. Is there a timeline for the police chief's next renewal of contract?
I don't believe it is this year. I believe it's next year.
Okay, great.
Um,
And so moving forward, we could contact you. And who oversees the police? So we looked at the town organizational chart, and we see that, well, we as residents oversee the police for one, right? But next step is,
That's not quite accurate, no.
okay,
No, oversight is, the final oversight is by the select board, but it is in my job description that I oversee the police chief on a day-to-day basis, as I do the highway superintendent and the fire chief on
okay,
the day-to-day.
okay. And
But
so I
policy
imagine,
and overall is, the authority of oversight is the select board.
all righty,
Yeah, taxpayers are not, taxpayers, are the final authority when it comes to town meeting. But as far as, as in the employee structure, it's the actual select board that responsibility after me.
okay, great. Well, I don't want to take up all your time. I'm hoping I'm hitting all the points. So if anyone else in the group that I am with has anything else to say on that, I think we will be following up to get on agenda so we could take more of your time next time, and to have a better understanding, since if this is the year that it's actually coming up for review, I imagine there's going to be a number of evaluations going forward for the police department and the police chief. And I guess in summary, I don't really see myself as a taxpayer. I see myself as a community member of the town, and that I pay taxes for services, but I'm hoping moving forward, and I think speaking for the group, we're looking at people are more active, engaged, and trying to help to make our town as safe as possible, to create safety for all.
Thank you, Ria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a public comment? Hands, please. Okay, we will move on then. Thank you very much. Okay. let me
Thank you.
Bring my agenda back up again. Clicked off. Right there. Okay. We are moving on to the pilot for Cirrus community property.
Okay, and I did, I know it wasn't in the packet, but I had forwarded this earlier to everyone. Does everyone have their proposal?
I
Don't think I don't have it.
I'm not sure if I got that.
I don't
I'm
know if
looking
I
for it
can-
now.
When was it sent, Becky?
I'm sorry?
When was it distributed to us?
It was about a month ago. I'm just gonna,
Yeah, just send it, if you could,
Can you forward it?
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not sure if I see it.
And I found the one that, here you go.
Becky, would you like me to give the background on how we got here?
Yes, that would be awesome.
Okay. Kevin Rudden, the assessor. Just so you guys know, we have had a pilot agreement, a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with our two large nonprofits in town, both Temenos and Sirius. Last year, we did an extensive review of Sirius's tax exempt status application, just because I was new to find out what they're actually doing, whether they still qualified. And the fact that the pilot agreement with them sort of lapsed about 10 years ago, or at least the records that we have, and they've been paying at the last rate they agreed to. They've actually been paying since 1997 money towards the town every month. And what Becky and I did when we went to meet with them about the tax status is we said, hey, basically, you're paying at about an 11-year rate, and we'd like to, A, get a new 5-year agreement signed, and B, just keep extending it the 5% escalator you were at to get them up there. And what they came back,
And you should all have it in your email. It was,
Okay.
and it basically, we were trying to get them this year up to $16,836 a year. And what they came back with and said, look, we're practically dead in the water on programs due to COVID. So they proposed escalating up from what they're currently paying, which is $9,043.68, and escalating up by 2024 over 5 years to $16,117. Given that we have nothing in writing with them right now, they are willing to come up to, well, where they should have been this year, but you know, given the fact they have no revenue coming in right now, I talked to Becky that it made sense to do it. And in 2025, they promised to go back to where they should be at that year, which would be another probably $5,000 jump. And I recommended it for two reasons. One, they can afford to pay this. Two, it gives us another agreement in writing. Three, the old agreements were signed by the Board of Assessors for whatever reason. And my feeling is
That should be
any pilot agreement by law should be signed by the chief executives of the town.
right.
And that's the select board. So I gave it to Becky to give to you guys. But from my point of view, it gets them back paying every year on a set schedule. They've agreed to go up to the full rate. We have it in writing. There are some other things that they've allowed in here, as you may or may not know. Assessors do not have the legal right to just go on anybody's property. We've not inspected their whole campus in a good long time. They've agreed to let me go on in the spring or as soon as COVID is over with a valuation expert to do a modern valuation. Our valuation of all their properties is at least 7 to 8 years old, if not older. So we don't know how much we're not taxing them on. I know that sounds circular, but this is part of an agreement to just get them back in a signed legal agreement. And they're willing to pay it, and it's what they can afford. And, you know, we did make a proposal. They came back with a counter proposal, and as part of negotiation, I think it's a good one, because it's going to be much higher than what they're paying now over the term of it.
Right. Well, especially if you're looking at actually doing a proper site visit. In addition, I think that will help us get it more accurate.
Well, given the rise in values in town, I have no idea what those buildings are worth. And some of those, as you know, are unique designs that really need special assessing. as to, what is a building that looks, pardon my term, the spaceship building worth. But in other words, what they've agreed to is they're raising over the 5 years. And in the 6th year, they've agreed to come up to where they should be at that 6th year anyway. Meaning we're not really, but we're going to have a signed written agreement again that is, unites the two of us. And the rest of it is just normal assessing stuff, but I'm trying to get, I'll tell you candidly, the Temenos agreement lapsed long before I got here, just like this one did. And as soon as this one's done, I'm working with them in this fiscal year to upgrade theirs.
Mhm.
And that I would bring to you when we get that one up. But again, you got to be realistic about people's business conditions. For nonprofit, they have no programs going on or minimal ones. They're not offering, they're not saying we won't pay. They're just saying, let us delay the rise. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if you guys do. Rita?
So I have 2 questions.
Yes.
First is when you talk about the, I'm not familiar with the Sirius campus. Are there, I know on the one side of Baker Road, there's a entrance and buildings back there, but are there also either single family homes or multifamily homes that are on the other side of?
No, they're not home. They have full-time students signed to 1 and 2 and 3-year contracts that live there. It's not like a rental situation. They're paying a tuition fee. This is what we went into, Becky and I, very heavily, because we were told, or I was told by a lot of people, well, they're renting property and that makes them, a for-profit business. So there are buildings there. Some are 1 or 2 family and some are what I would call dormitory style. But they all house students that are paying tuition for the quote unquote living experience of living and working there. I mean, we basically got a good tutorial of what they actually do there.
They're running educational programs, and so people that spend their tenure there are, it's deemed an educational nonprofit because it is. They have different programs that different people are in and that run at different times, and they give workshops in different areas when they can have people coming onto campus. And I know Kevin wasn't aware, but in the last 10 years before Kevin got here, I know that Ken went and did look over the properties and found that, at that point we were in a downturn for property values. And so that, our conversations were about waiting till we start to have an uptick because the values weren't there to support changes at that point.
And we are in an uptick real estate market.
At this
we've pulled out of the Great Recession, over a 10-year period. But the other thing we also clarified, just so you guys know, we clarified like they were leasing out a hall for 2 wedding receptions. And we clarified that from now on, they will segregate revenue from any non-serious type event and show us specifically where that revenue went every year when they file. But the type of things we're talking about that they can't have held to COVID is they used to have, like a program on a Saturday where you'd pay a small tuition to go and learn something. And outside of their resident students, they haven't been able to bring outsiders in because of COVID. And what they're, hoping is as soon as they reestablish that, that's the schedule they have. They have no problem paying the money. And basically they'd stay flat this year. Next year, they'll go up 30%. The year after that, 60% higher than this year. And the year after that, 90% higher. And then in 2025, they'd go back to where they should be, which is about another 5,000 above the 16. So they'd be back on track where they should be at that point.
So I guess that's the second part of my question is when you start talking about assessing, well, payment in lieu of taxes, I'm not sure how that relates to what, the change in property values. It's a negotiated.
Okay. Well, it's a separate thing, but we still need to know the value of the property that we're not taxing. because it does carry weight with the state and other things. And you just can't go. I mean, by law, I have to visit every property once every 10 years, even if it's driving by it, looking at it. We have a recertification coming up in 2 years, Rita, with the state. I'd like to tell them that that property's been inspected and updated as to its assessed value. And don't forget, if in fact that property is ever sold, that then gives us the benchmark for where we are if it becomes taxable, as opposed to scrambling at a sale or after a sale to do it. So it's just good assessing business to do it every so often. And the law says every 10 years. But again, I mean, I could drive by and take a guess, but this, they're basically green and let me walk through, you know, every property and remeasure and photograph it and see what's changed over the years. So it doesn't have to do with the pilot. The pilot is voluntary on their part. They do not have an obligation to do it. They started doing it, and I think it's good that they do it, because at least then when the community says, well, they don't pay anything, they pay something. So, you know, it's nice to see them willing to do it and willing to escalate along the terms of the one that expired.
So does this need to be written up as a formal pilot contract that then we can review and sign?
The Board of Assessors has used a 1 or 2 page agreement that basically says it's an agreement between the town and Sirius set forth to the payment in lieu of taxes. It covers this period of time. The previous ones all said that the thing would level off if we ever hit the $25 per thousand tax rate. And it says it goes up by 5% a year, rounded to the nearest dollar, paid on a monthly basis. And it says it gets renewed after 5 years. It's a 1 page agreement, and they sign it and you sign it. It's not like the 25 page agreement with Next Year and Lodestar.
Right.
I just have one additional question. How many
Yes.
buildings, do you know how many buildings there are in total?
Oh, there's more than 4 or 5.
And that
We have 5 separate property cards, but I can't be sure they haven't put up anything else or more sheds since I've been here, and I have not inspected the property in the 20 months I've been here. So I couldn't give you an honest answer. I know they have the big, what I call the spaceship, the one with the round meeting room in it. And I know the schoolhouse is on their campus and owned by them, but actually run separately, but non-taxable because it's a school, but it's part of that. We don't have a good measurement on that. I know they own the old schoolhouse building on Schoolhouse Road, which is vacant and not being used, but they own it. And so this would give us a modern updating of all their holdings. To be honest with you, I don't like being here more than a year and not knowing what they have. Being real candid. They were on my list to inspect anyway. But again, you know, they could say, we don't want you on the property. As part of this meeting, they agreed to let me have full range of the property and remeasure everything, which I think is good. It's voluntary, it's cooperative.
There was a real strong sense of cooperation. It was a good meeting.
Basically, if you don't know, the founder passed away a couple of years ago, and they've sort of floundered for the last year and a half, and then COVID hit. They have a new management team in place, and they seem to have a financial plan for where they want to go. And part of that is restoring relations with the town and updating the pilot. So,
Okay. Do we, have you drawn up the pilot? Do we need, are you gonna send it to us so we can read it, Kevin?
yeah, I'll send it to you guys, but I think we just wanted to get the numbers before you, so you knew where it was going. But I can, we can have this for you at your next meeting, so you can do a formal vote.
Okay.
Are you
But
good with that, Rita and April, to have it
Yeah.
for our next meeting?
Yes.
That sounds
Yeah.
good.
But again, we got their counter offer right before the holidays, and just, it didn't make sense to bring it to you till the new year. And they know it's before you for review. And they're okay with that, so.
Okay. Nice work.
Thank you so much.
Good team effort with Becky to spend a lot of time sitting down with them. And they have a treasurer who's really interested in working with me on all their annual filings.
Oh, good. That's great.
And to me, that's a big help when you have a nonprofit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And by the way, we went to them with about 25 questions and they answered them all in writing. So we have a written record of their responses to our issues.
Okay.
That would be,
So I think is
yeah, I would like to see that.
the questions and answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Rita, thanks for asking for that. I think that's a good idea.
Agree.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll give you the memo we sent them, and then they gave us, Becky and I, an email back with detailed answers to each one, sort of memorializing the conversations we had. So yeah, I can put those together for you.
Yeah,
along with-
before we sign the pilot, I would like to read that.
Not a problem. I'll put that together in a package with the agreement. I'll get it to Becky tomorrow
Thanks.
to give
Kevin.
to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's move on to a review report on Evan Turner meeting.
Yeah, where's that?
So, I believe we've,
I'm just
I
going
did
to
send that out to the select board, right?
Yeah, I've got it.
1 second, Becky. My older computer is lagging. Go ahead. I'll bring it up on the screen. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay, so this meeting was with a select board member and Kevin, myself, and representatives from AMP Solar. Let me see. I'm sorry, I didn't have my papers ready. 1 second. So what we did is had, what they're presenting is a proposal that the town enter into the new SMART program. If the solar permits do go forward, their hope is that we can do a newly developed program from DOER, which is a partnership between the town and where the town would actually operate the solar systems and would participate by doing all the groundskeeping and keeping the, bring in electrical solar technicians when necessary. And this is all brand new. We don't have any samples of this being operational. It was just written into law recently. So we are busy trying to learn how this potentially would work, and trying to understand if this would be something that would be of benefit to the town, and figuring out how we could administer it and be sure prior to that point that it would be a positive cash flow. At this point, they are assuming that it will be significant money for the town, and we just have a lot of exploration to do into the program itself, and then figuring out if a town our size would have the capacity and the resources to do it. So that was one of the most interesting pieces of the conversation. The other, okay, I'm jumping off the report a little bit. Kevin, feel free to jump in at any time. So Coles is looking at the development of these solar farms, up to 5 of them potentially, because of the conservation, the CR, the conservation restriction they have put on 2,000 acres in Shutesbury. And when they've been working on the CR for about 5 years, and they started by identifying the property that would go under CR. But they also, in these last couple of years, have carved out the potential sites that NRADs have come forward on. We don't have any special permit applications for solar at this point. So this is all in early discussion stages. Before Evan Turner, who set up the meeting, is a consultant for AMP. He has been to the planning board to give them updates on what they're thinking. And he's the select board, one select board member and myself and Kevin Rudin have met with with AMP. Well, actually, we only met with Evan Turner the first time. So he gave us an overview at that point, but this last meeting was more detail of what they're hoping to do. Kevin, please feel free to jump in at any point.
Yeah, well, the last meeting was actually a joint meeting with folks from Coles and folks from AMP.
Yep.
To just talk in very broad terms. And I think what the goal of this was to make sure everybody who wants to hears what was said, so that there's not a, well, I heard this and I heard that. And it basically was, if you read the announcement that was in last week's Gazette, Coles has put slightly over 2,000 acres in permanent conservation restriction. And it's 5 large and 1 small parcel in town. And they are the 6 parcels. They're currently before the Conservation Commission for the wetlands delineation or ANRAD process. And they propose to block out, although right now they're ruling out the smaller Baker Street parcel, they propose to keep out in the 5 larger ones, roughly 150 acres in scattered little sites, just like Wheelock is 30 acres in that larger site, to keep sites out and develop, I think it was a total of 45 megawatts of power in various sizes across them.
Yeah, I think they said 40 to 45.
40 to 45, size to the site. They were looking at locations as far away from wetlands and residents as possible. The only one I really know, specifically, well, I don't know where, but on the current Wheelock property, there would be another one located. The rest, I think Becky shared a memo with you, or I gave the assessor's parcels, which is how I know them. There's one near the Poverty Farm, which they call, there's one near closer to January Hills Road on Pratt Corner. There's 3 of them off of Pratt Corner. But basically they were tied into Coles putting the rest of the property under conservation restriction, which they have. They intend to, just so Michael knows, they said they intend to apply for the 5 special permits at the planning board in this calendar year. They did have a couple of comments to make. One is they needed a sense from the town, not a, we've approved it, but some sense from the town by the end of March that the town was interested in seeing these go forward, because by the end of March, early April, they have to pay National Grid $12 million to upgrade the power station transmission line and center off of Pratt Corner Road. And obviously they don't want to make that payment if they think they're all going to be turned down. So they're looking for at least a sense from the town that the town was like the idea. They did make a comment that they thought the current zoning bylaw as passed at town meeting last summer was too restrictive. And they discussed the idea of they might seek waivers. I did advise them as a former planning and zoning board member in my old town, you can't waive zoning, you need to go through the process, the legal process of it. I'm trying to think, Becky, what else they said. Oh, and a lot of the discussion was on this public-private partnership, just that there would be a pilot for all 5 of them if we don't do the public-private partnership. And there would be a lot more in a pilot if we did. But I would say they're talking in the range of,
Kevin, did you say there would not be a pilot?
no, there would be a pilot.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we did not, there'd just be more money to the town if we did this partnership of taking care of it. But there are a lot of legal issues involved in that, plus hiring and other issues, although there is a way to do it and set up like the way the fiber optics is, or a municipal light and power company does it. But again, their biggest comment was, they're going to go ahead with this. They wanted all of it to be approved and built within 3 years. They also had a very aggressive, and Michael will probably laugh at this. They had a very aggressive timeline, Michael DeChara, of trying to get one approved at each monthly planning board meeting. To which Becky and I responded, the exact words weren't good luck, but our idea was, yeah. And we did tell them it took 3 years for the first one. But that's what they discussed. And, we were very firm in that, the next steps would be the planning board handles the special permitting, should they apply. Conservation handles all the wetlands. As part of the planning board process, the historical committee gets involved in delineating what's called for in the zoning bylaw. The select board would do any pilot and if there is a public-private agreement. And basically, I would do any values should these things get built in calculating out towards pilots. And again, they filed nothing. They had a preliminary meeting with Becky and I believe Melissa back in the summer, and then they had more of us invited in December to discuss things, and that's all that was discussed.
Yeah. There are a couple, I just want to add a couple things, Mary.
1 second, Miriam, let Becky fill in and then you can ask questions.
They did say that the new standard is for all industrial solar plants to have battery backups.
Yes, and all of them want to have battery backups built in them.
Yeah, and we have recently added a battery backup. Just in December, battery backup was added to the site on Wheelock. And the other.
And they did just to let you know, they did get their first bill with the round of tax bills that went out in late December.
Okay.
The bill on the pilot, there's a separate pilot schedule for the batteries on the Wheelock site. We are now receiving our first payments this new calendar year or fiscal year. We're getting paid for that as well.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when Kevin went through who's responsible for what, I just wanted to add in the historical commission would, by the bylaw, would receive a letter asking, making inquiries about the sites and whether there were no Native American ceremonial activity on any of those sites.
Right. But the other thing is, regardless of whether these go forward or not, Coles has put a permanent restriction on those 6 parcels, with the exception of the little acreage parcels they left out. Coles' intent is to develop something on those little acreage. I don't want to call them little, but whatever the amount of acres is. But I was quite surprised to read in the paper that the restriction was signed last week. Because I thought it was still ongoing, but it's signed and done. And basically, I'm trying to get a map made to show people how large an area of the town they actually just wiped from development.
Miriam, you had a question. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, just saying it's 2,068 acres, I believe, is now permanently restricted from being developed.
Right.
Other than they have the right to do
Logging.
I wouldn't call it logging, I'd call it timber harvesting per their plan.
Right.
Right.
They're continuing their operations for
Right.
forestry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Miriam, you had a question. You have to unmute yourself.
I do.
There you go.
So I had 3 questions, and I just missed my notes here. One was, did they give you, and I'll just give you the questions. One was, have they given you any sense of when they're going to be submitting the first application and or writing to the historical commission? And then the second question I had was, are they planning on participating in the SMART program either way, if we are doing a private public partnership or not? And then I guess the third question was, because I remember this came up at a planning board meeting, was did they talk about, kind of what the risk sharing would look like if there was a public-private arrangement? Because I remember that was discussed at a planning board meeting.
I could take 1 and 2.
Yeah.
One was, without giving a firm date, they indicated they would be submitting at least one application in the month of January. I'm sorry, the second question again was?
Was about whether they're planning on participating in the SMART program, either.
The entire, the SMART program is the only thing that exists now. SRECs are gone.
Right, but I suppose a solar project could decide not to participate.
They have to do it to make it financially feasible.
Yeah.
So yes.
Thanks.
And there's multiple ways. We outlined one way to participate in the SMART program that they outlined to us, but there's at least 6, I think 5 or 6 ways to participate in the
Right.
program.
And the proposal they gave on a public-private partnership was quite honestly too vague to determine risks, but from state law procedure, the only, well, I don't want to say how it would work, but the town would have to get creative in figuring out how to hire an employee that you would not be responsible for if the development went away after 30 years.
Right.
And whether or not you bought equipment. So, I mean, they were saying was, well, hire an extra person on the highway department and we'll train them to replace solar panels. Well, that's fine, but if at the end of 30 years they go away, the town has to pick up that employee, their benefits, their retirement. So those are the type of issues. There were procurement issues on how you buy things. There were so many issues that Becky and I thought of, and each of the select board members who popped on and off that meeting, that I would say it's way too early to even determine what that might even look like.
Kevin, I wasn't sure if, I know the SMART program's very new. Are there any other towns that have this kind of cooperative related, so that we don't have anybody we can look at?
No, in fact, Evan bragged that we would be the first, and that in fact, he interpreted part of the Department of DOER regulations that came out in 2020 to allow this. And so he was proposing it, and he planned to make this a template to take all over the Commonwealth. And that alone bothers me because it's never been done before, which means you're the guinea pig.
Have at it.
But there are, I know Michael has a question.
I saw Rita's hand too.
Okay.
Rita
And
goes first.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I attended the second meeting, or most of the second meeting.
Right.
Kind of at the very last minute, Melissa was unable to attend. So I came into the meeting with very little background.
Right, and then when you left, Rita, April came in.
For the very end, yes.
I think just a couple of observations. One was, there was discussion, as Kevin mentioned, about this public-private partnership, which immediately set off kind of alarms for me about what did that really mean, what was entailed. I mean, typically public-private partnerships, there's either home rule petitions, there's all kinds of a number of things that need to be considered. But my other observation was that we were talking about this potential partnership before anything has even been submitted. And, they were, as Kevin also explained, they were talking about all kinds of waivers. And, my reaction was, we're not getting out ahead of the process here. As a select board, I think we can educate ourselves, we can educate people in town, but as a select board, not to be stepping out prior to all the other town boards and committees that have jurisdiction over this permitting process. So that was—
I agree, Rita, because it would be like you saying, we've developed a pilot agreement, here you go, planning board.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way, because you don't even know if they're going to get approved.
Right. And so it felt like the discussion was really premature, and I had a certain level of discomfort with it.
On the other hand, if these start proceeding through the planning board, wherever that eventually goes, it does give you time to say, if it looks like they're going forward, we need to research this. But I agree with you, it's way too early to say to them, yeah, we want to do this.
But I think if there is to be any consideration of the public private partnership, it has to happen quickly, because we have to understand, we have to dig in and understand it to be able to evaluate it. And that's going to take a while. So I think it's, if they're going to, if that's a serious proposal, which it is from their side, it's going to take a lot of legwork to review. So I think everything, I don't think it's jamming anything up. Anything that we're talking about is totally conditional on the planning board's activities, which is autonomous from ours.
The only thing that I know it affects is the original ballpark number that Evan tossed out with Melissa and Becky for a pilot back in the summer would be cut in half if you didn't do that partnership. He let loose at the December meeting that number included the partnership. So any pilot would be about half as much for the 5 without it.
But I'm not sure if that's true, Kevin, because I don't know if the program had been outlined at that point in the summer. We have to look at that.
No, it wasn't even, I don't know that they had outlined it very well at all.
No, I mean,
It was also very vague.
I don't think it had come
No.
out from the state yet, so I'm not sure if that's true.
Yeah, and just, to Becky's point, somebody might have to look at this in just a global way, like, has this ever been done, or how has somebody done it, or how would you do it? Running a lot of stuff by legal counsel just to see if it meets state laws. But that's separate from them filing with the planning board, them filing, official, beyond the NRED's official plans with the Conservation Commission.
And the planning board.
Yep.
Michael, you had your hand up.
I did, thank you. So first, I just want to thank you guys for having this conversation. It's great to sort of be able to hear what was said. I guess my first request would be, can Becky or someone share that report that went to the select board with the planning board? So we can get a copy, just in the spirit of the more information we all know, the better. So I had just a couple of quick things. In terms of the filing, when Evan presented to the planning board a couple of months ago, I think it was November, he indicated that Pratt Corner East, which is the northernmost of the 3 Pratt Corner sites, would be the one that would be coming in January. So just to drill down, that's what he told us. In terms of the partnership, he mentioned that to the planning board as well. His framing of it was a great way to sort of let the town get more money. My personal sense, I think it reflects the response to the planning board, but I won't speak for the planning board. But it gets to Miriam's point about risk, because basically what they're saying is we need someone to do the maintenance and take care of the site, and we'll pay you to do that. And so it raises issues of risk, which is important, capacity. We're a small town who's never taken care of a solar installation before. And we're just getting paid to do services. It's not like we're getting a windfall. It's very separate from, yes, it's a revenue source, but it's in exchange for doing services and maybe additional risk. So it's very different in character than the pilot. I think the framing is misleading because we'll get revenue, but we'll have expenses and we'll have liabilities connected to that. So I think that's just I would dig deep, but it feels highly dubious in my mind. And I think at least some people on the planning board felt that.
Michael, if I could interrupt, just as far as I'm looking at it from, assessing and revenue standpoint, I think it's an entirely separate issue that shouldn't factor into any board's consideration of the merits of the 5 sites.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree. I think
That it's a separate issue
Mhm.
for the select board to research and decide this is too risky, or let's look at it to see if you do make money. But
I agree with you, Kevin. In fact, I think part of the research would be figuring out whose jurisdiction it is, because I think it's a contract. It's not, has
Mhm.
nothing to do with development.
it's a contract between the select board and the company.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Becky wants to cut in there, guys.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Becky.
I want to interrupt. I think there is an approach to the situation that is more similar to the MLP situation.
Yep.
Where if we were to bring in a subcontractor, our subcontractor to handle all the work and have already prior to that point determined what level of income. They cited the potential income of $10,000 per megawatt, which is $400,000 a year. And they were saying that they felt that would be profit, which meant they were willing to spend more than that. And so the
They-
question is to
Well,
determine whether that is possible. And so I've already found one company to talk to and get estimates from, and I'm looking at another just to have a sense, because that takes away a lot, depending on how the contracts are worded, but then the liability of the operations while the town is subcontracting for it will shift to the subcontractor. And so I think there is very simple ways of potentially doing this. Whether they are, negative or positive is to be determined.
Right.
But I don't think it's, it's as dubious a potential, whether it will make any money, but I think the risk issues can be dealt with.
Well, it seems
Well, I
like
think,
there's parallel processes happening here, where the planning board, you're looking at the actual sites, and the select board would be looking at,
The
does
after
this,
place.
yeah, no, I agree. I think, based on what Becky's saying, I mean, it's just me thinking about it, if it should be researched, and the question to ask is, why would they be willing to pay more money for a subcontract to the town if the actual subcontractor would be getting less money? They could just subcontract for less money. So to me, it's all about pushing off risk. And that's for the town. Do we want to, even if we have a sub for it, we're passing along the risk and their hands are free. So it's for you guys to research. I just wanted to
Right.
say that he
But
presented.
I want to give you a partial answer to that question.
Yeah,
Is the SMART program, like the SREC program, gives benefits, financial benefits to developers. So it's not so much as shoving off risk as their economic picture, rounding out their economic picture, because it'll heighten the benefits they get through
Right.
the SMART program.
right. Well,
So
it's
it
also,
doesn't have to be based on just shoving off risk.
though, the
And
thing that I pointed out when he mentioned that, because it's misframed, because the fact that it's a public-private partnership is a misnomer, because there's no partnership. I mean, I asked him directly if there was any, revenue sharing in this methodology, and there's not. We're not going to get any of the profit. This is a contractual arrangement. There's no partnership involved in that regard. We just happen to be a public contractor.
They're doing it for 2 reasons. One is, as Becky said, they get more benefits from the state, which raises their bottom line if they do it.
Right.
And the second is, let's not forget, their worldwide headquarters is Toronto.
yeah.
We're down here in Shutesbury. It's, hey, we don't ever have to take care of that thing.
Exactly.
They're an
Yeah, it's like
enormous,
hands-off operation.
they're an
Yeah.
enormous
No,
company.
exactly.
They're huge.
Right. And it's real simple. It's, you know what? If we write them a check every year, they'll maintain it for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and it's
that
worth-
they,
And
the
Which
other-
allows us to have quite a bit of stuff in that contract, like retirement and post employee benefits.
Right. And I only pointed out because it's presented as being magnanimous. And I think, Kevin, you framed it exactly right. So I had
Oh,
one
no.
other thing that,
it's good business
yeah.
for
So
them.
the other thing I just learned in this presentation, which is the thing that I don't know if it concerns me, but it sort of piqued my interest, is if they're looking for a sense of the town on these things by March, that's a little concerning to figure out, well, how does one create a sense of the town with any process, you know? Because the planning board will accept special permit by special permit as presented and go through a process, and that's our due diligence. The Concom will do theirs, Historic Commission will have theirs. Select Board would pick it up, when it gets to them as approved. And so I don't think there's any legitimate way to identify what a sense of the town is. You can't have a special town meeting and have a vote. That doesn't, that's really curious how, I don't think we could even do that.
There is a way to give them what they need. They want some kind of memorandum of understanding that says the town would like to go forward with this. And very easily you say the town would like to go forward this subject to approval by all relevant boards and following all relevant state and local laws.
Because they're looking for a non-binding kind of an idea of
Right.
where we're at.
That's what they're looking for, is a non-binding memorandum of understanding. And if you say, hey, it's a great idea, subject to review and approval by everybody.
Well, but I think it's subjective, because I think even saying it's a good idea, it's a good idea only subject to the process. So it might not be a good idea. I think even making that statement is getting ahead of the curve. 2 might be a good idea, 1 might be a good idea, 5 might be a good idea. They all might be bad ideas. You can't know until you do the process. So I think even that statement is a little bit cart before the horse.
And quite honestly, you also have to come up with the criteria of what makes it good.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, they're good. From yours, they may not be.
Yeah.
Miriam, you had a question? I see you,
Yeah,
Becky.
I don't
Miriam?
know if this has been resolved, because I don't really know if this falls under the planning board as a question anyway, because I'm not sure this is a criteria that the special permit has to evaluate. But I've read through the guidelines, the new guidelines for the SMART program, and it says that you cannot be eligible for the SMART program if you're sited on any property that is 50% biomap 2. And I've looked at the map overlays, and all of those sites are at least 50% biomap 2 habitat, according to Mass DEP, according to the state and DOER. So I'm not really sure who figures that out, but I think that, for thinking that the SMART credits are a factor here, that needs to be figured out.
Yeah, they need to figure that out.
We need to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's the applicant's responsibility.
Becky, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, the one point that they made that we hadn't mentioned was one way they're different than other developers is they purchase these sites to be lifelong neighbors, or to hold them. Unlike our Lodestar buddies who are long gone, and the Lake Street guys who are long gone, and who knows what's going to happen with Next Era. So just one difference that AMP brings to the
So
table.
Becky, Lake Street said they were moving to town. They bought an AC membership. They said the same thing.
Except AMP has a history of this, Michael. That's the
I'm
difference.
just saying.
It's not just what they're saying, it's how.
No,
they-
I'm saying, if they flip it,
No.
they flip it. We can't control that.
That's why you look at their history.
So where are we with, just this report, the review of the meeting? Now, should we approve that and let people in the public know where we are? Because it's important that, we're above board. It's complicated what we're looking at, and it stirs up a lot of feelings. And it's also an opportunity for our town to really, have some income that we wouldn't normally have. We would never have, and lower property taxes. I mean, it's a big deal.
Kevin?
I just go back to your last meeting where Becky and I it was agreed that Becky and I would write up the meeting in as short a statement as possible, so that it could be given out to the public to say, this is what's happened to date. And you now know what we know. And Michael, you were on that call where that was the idea. was it was also that they then be given to any board that's listed on it, which I believe are historical, conservation, and planning.
Planning, yep.
So that just everybody knew what was a summary of what was said at those meetings. So nobody says, well, they had this private meeting, or I heard this. That's what we know. That's what was said. That's what we know. And if you look at, I know the folks who've seen it, it says from here on, here's the boards who handle what aspect of it, if it goes forward. And it specifically names conservation, planning, historical, select board, and then me if you need to determine values. So it tells the people, this is where it goes from here. Because nothing's been submitted to anybody other than the ANRADs.
So let's do that, Becky. I know, why don't we give it to the chairs or someone within the committee so they can have it as a,
Great.
you know,
Mhm.
the report that was you and
Yeah.
Kevin did.
Do we need to vote on approving the report or just send it on?
No, I mean,
Even better.
it's all been, every point has been discussed in this meeting publicly already.
I would even advocating putting it up on the website that just says, in case you're interested.
Melissa, I didn't hear where you requested it go.
Oh, just to the just if you could give it to the chairs or someone within the committee, each one that's listed.
I was thinking we should post it on online.
Oh, that's, yeah. But
On
directly
the
to the chairs of those committees that are involved.
Email it, but
Yeah.
we need to post it on the select board page, I think.
Yeah, because to me, then
Okay.
it's a level playing field where everybody in the community knows these are the points discussed at those 2 preliminary meetings. And when things are filed, here's the boards that are going to handle it.
Jeff,
And they may never file.
Right.
Jeff?
Thank you. I have to get off in just a second, but I would just caution that zoning advice in an official capacity should be given by the building inspector, the planning board, or the zoning board, and not the town assessor. I mean, what Kevin reported that he said to the applicants that there are no waivers in zoning is incorrect, because those waivers are actually built into the bylaw. If they weren't, a variance would be required from the zoning board of appeals, but we built waivers in intentionally. So
Jeff, I'm not going to split hairs with you. I did not give improper advice, and I'm not going to split hairs or get in an argument with you, but you weren't there. Take it offline with me. Got it?
no, if I'm not there, don't give the advice. Give the advice if you know what you're talking about, but not otherwise.
Okay, I think we have a disagreement that
As I said, let's take it offline.
but I would like to also mention that we requested, the planning board chair had committed to come to the meeting and had all the information, and 10:30 the night before the meeting, he let me know he would not be available. So it would have been very helpful to have had the planning board represented at the meeting, but because of the late disappearance of the chair, we were not able to have that happen.
Gotta go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Anybody else have any questions before we move on to the next topic? April,
Yes.
was the question answered about what we should do with it or no?
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah,
I have,
just
I have a
public.
question. I've had my hand raised
Yeah.
for about 15 or so minutes, but I
Oh, I
realize
can't see
nobody's,
you, Janice.
no, I know, but it's on the little, the participants.
Oh,
to
I'm
raise
sorry.
hand.
We usually have people visually raise the hand. I
Yeah.
apologize.
I
Janice.
know. So, I mean, it's been helpful listening to all of this. And my question was, which is partially but not entirely answered, is how will the public get a chance to weigh in on this possible smart maintenance thing? And, especially if there's something that has to be configured in writing by March. And I agree with the concerns that that's really rushing it if, as you folks say, it has to go through the process of planning board and Concom and to some degree historical. So at any rate, I just want to know how that's going to happen, that people have a chance to provide input. not just those committees.
Becky, go ahead.
As far as the SMART program, if we were to participate in it, I believe we'd have to go to town meeting before that, that would be part of the process, Janice. But that's not the request from them to have a sense of what the town thinks is not related to the SMART program. Those are two separate things.
Oh, okay.
So.
Thank you, Janice. Although, just to answer your question a little further, once it comes to meetings and such, they're open and you can attend the planning board meetings, and maybe the planning board will allow comment or along the way that way, of course.
But it's more it's not the planning board's part, but the select board, if they're the group that would make the agreement with the developer about the maintenance. thing.
Right, that would be, right. We would also have an open meeting and we would discuss that contract as we're doing that
Okay.
too.
Thanks.
Right,
And-
before
and
we
I
vote
think
on, it.
it has to go
we
to
bring it to a
annual town-
public meeting.
Okay.
And it has to go to annual town meeting, I believe, as well.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, shall we move on to the next topic? I'm gonna just bring my agenda back up. Review inappropriate emails and develop a select board response. We are a little bit behind on our timing here. So,
Yeah.
okay. Becky, did you want to,
Sure.
we lost someone. Do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown?
Okay, so I'm bringing this forward because I've had a number of, I've been hearing concerns about open meeting law and public records process, how emails are being handled on some boards and committees. And in particular, the Historical Commission has a new configuration of members and is not, from what I'm hearing, it does not appear to be as well versed in open meeting law. And I would like to recommend that the select board support having Donna McNichol come in and do a workshop for the Historical Commission. They have, I think at least half their members are new, and not all of them have participated on committees and boards before. So I think it would be really helpful in moving down the road and improving the situation with emails. There have also been questions raised. The select board has received, again, a new flourish of emails from Rolf Couchette and his partner. And I just want to review the background on that. In the past of 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago, we got to a point with some of Rolf's emails where they were not professional. They were antagonistic and were causing a great deal of harm to individuals that served on town boards and committees, and lots of accusations and insults had transpired over quite a lengthy time. And the response the select board, upon receiving advice from council, had to resort to was to let Rolf know that his emails would not be, would be blocked from Shutesbury.org emails except for the select board, that the boards and committees that were being negatively impacted by them needed to be protected by the select board from that, that exposure. And my concern right now is we don't want to go back to that situation. The productivity of all our boards and committees is key. It's critical to the town's operations. And we want to support positive engagement with the public, by all our boards and committees. So if I'm coming to the select board just as a first conversation, that if there are any more emails that are negative, or feel aggressive, or as in an attacking way, we would need to look back and redo that situation. We would have to send a warning to people that are, aggressively being negative and unproductive and unprofessional in the emails they send to town hall and to town officials. So I just wanted to have this conversation with the select board. If you feel as the weeks and months develop, or if you feel we now are already at that point and we need to send out a letter of warning, just to alert people to the fact that the select board does have a mechanism to protect people, and that if they continue to send out derogatory emails or abusive emails, that their emails would be blocked.
Rita, go ahead. One second, Miriam, and go ahead, Rita.
I appreciate that, not being relatively new to the board. I wasn't really privy to what had gone on previously, but kind of got filled in the last few days as I saw some of these emails. And I think what I found most appalling as a select board member, that there was sort of blanket accusations made about the select board, including it would cover me, who never had anything to do with this before. So that was very troubling. And I think something should be done immediately, that we don't need to wait for any additional emails, to be very clear about the inappropriateness and, of the emails, and really the inaccuracy.
Yes.
As written, they're not truthful. And I think that needs to be stated very clearly to the author.
I agree with you, Rita, having endured them in past years. It's better to say it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just stop it, especially given, the statement from the Nipmuc Nation regarding this individual. I noticed that there was no claim to be part of that particular nation, but sort of the appropriating of native culture. And that individual are no longer residents of this community, is my understanding. And I found, it's terribly offensive and triggering of past events. So I agree, we can just stop it. And I don't know if that needs to be a letter from our town council to do that.
No, it's a select board.
Yeah, we wrote one other one too, and I think it's a good time to remind that person.
Yeah, she said because of the length of time that we had a quiet period for a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years, that we need to start with a warning, and that if they persist, then the emails will be blocked.
Miriam, you had your hand up.
Yeah, because I wrote to the select board. I have a couple of, can you hear me?
Yes.
I had a couple of concerns, partially because I'm the secretary for the Historical Commission, which means I'm managing the Historical Commission's email inbox. And I've reported to Becky when we received emails from one of the individuals being discussed. There have also been some emails passed about from his spouse. And I think that, I guess I'd want to know what we define as aggressive, because one of the emails referred to a blood curse. Which, you know, I found to be disturbing language. And it was disturbing for me personally to be feeling some obligation to then pass that on to all the other commissioners, because the procedure with me is that when we get emails in that inbox, I then forward them to all the commissioners. So I felt uncomfortable being in the position of doing that. I did do it. Also, we have a policy when emails are received, we usually acknowledge them by responding to whoever sent them, saying received of the historical commission. So again, kind of puts us, I'm looking for guidance about whether we need to respond in any way to acknowledge that the emails have been received. You know, the other concern, which I've raised with Becky, and I have talked with Henry, who is the chair, is that some of the emails that have been getting passed along included what could be construed as being defamatory information about a consultant that the Historical Commission, outside consultant, that the Historical Commission has approved hiring. And we are now just in the process of finalizing her contract. And I think that puts the town and the Historical Commission in a very uncomfortable position. I understand that Becky is planning on talking to the select board about writing to this consultant and making her aware of these comments, because the comments call into question her credentials. The other area of concern was that I'm aware that an email was sent to the select board about me personally. And while I understand that people from the public are welcome to say things about members of boards, I just want to get some clarification of what the process is for responding or investigating those kinds of claims, because I personally felt that some of the accusations were inaccurate and potentially defamatory.
Miriam, this particular person has done that to a lot of us throughout the years. So it's not something that we would necessarily respond to his each individual comment.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Or at all. Michael, you had your hand up because
Yeah, I would just support you guys and you know, cutting off communications as soon as possible. I think I was chair of the select board when we went through this, and I would say the board was, you know, trying to be very thoughtful and methodical, so that we weren't rash, and we had a paper trail, and we communicated our concerns, and we gave some time for a response. And, you know, the behavior just escalated and continued. So, I mean, we ended up having no choice. And April, I forget what word you said about, it was triggering.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was emotional hell. You know, it's really hard because you're trying to do your work and you're trying to be responsive, and yet you're getting attacked. And so I get what Donna's saying, and, you know, she's legal counsel, so she should follow that. But I guess, you know, especially for Rita, since you weren't there for it, don't let it go on longer than it needs to be, because you guys don't have to get dragged through the mud. It won't stop and it won't get better. It's based on our past experience, and we should be methodical so we can, you know, do the proper approach. But at least with this one individual, it's demonstrated that it's, you know, it's continual, and you guys don't deserve that.
Miriam.
The only thing I would add is that if the select board goes through a process, I think they should make it clear to members of boards, because there've been situations where communications have been forwarded by board members, so somewhat circumventing the direct email process. So, you know, if we're saying an individual can't email a board directly, can a member of that board forward emails from that individual to other board members or to the town account? And I think that's something that has to get fleshed out.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would have to think about. I think maybe get Donna's advice on that one.
Yeah, that's there. We still have yeah. the First Amendment, so.
And that's why that's why in the past we kept the path to the select board open so that there was one path.
Mhm. Well,
Um,
so is there any reason why we should just not go back to that place? Because that's where we left it, you know, and I'm not sure how, you know,
The
was there a
email address
time limit
changed.
on that? The emails going to anybody outside?
The
Yes.
email address changed, so that's how it came through.
It wasn't the first time the email address changed.
No.
Okay.
But I think it's, you know, it's limited. What we can do really is limited. It's just for people, for our boards and committees to understand that the select board does, you know, will do what it can, even if it's limited, to try to protect the board from
Mhm.
abusive behavior.
Yeah, it's
And
toxic. It's toxic.
It is, and as easy as it says is to say, and not easy to do, especially when you're reading something about yourself, is try to put it in the proper place. This is how this person communicates, and while it may feel personal, try not to take it personally.
Yeah.
And let it, just put it away and let the email sit. Try not to take it personally. This is his communication style. So, which is unfortunate.
Yes. It's unfortunate that you know, somehow he's come back. It's like,
And it doesn't allow for easy conversations around the topics that he raises either. That may be good conversations for the town to have, but it's hard to have when you're getting that kind of feedback from someone. So it doesn't make those conversations easy to have.
no. So what's our next step is to communicate, because I wasn't on the select board when I missed this part. I missed it.
Oh, you didn't miss the lead up.
No, I did not.
No, I will update the letter and get it out to the select board. If you guys will vote to, if you're comfortable enough to vote to approve it, if at this point, or if you want to wait to vote in a week or 2 weeks, it's your call, but.
I feel comfortable voting to approve it, subject to if you send it out to us and if we have any edits, that we get those back to you correctly and then authorize you to send something out. I just want to see it, have the opportunity to give a couple of suggestions.
The best process for that is to wait till next week.
Rita, would it be helpful to see the letter we sent last time? I think it would help. I know it'd be helpful for me to remind myself what the first letter was.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Do you want to do that now? Before we vote to authorize the Becky to send a letter?
I was thinking if we could see the two letters in comparison when we're reading them for edits.
Okay.
That was what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's just if it is going to be a delay of 2 weeks, I think that's a long time to wait.
Oh, no, I think we could do it quickly, right? I don't think it would be a delay.
So this could be written and each of us can have comments on it and it's synthesized and sent within the week.
I'm discouraging that process. I'm saying you need to, maybe we can meet at 5:30 prior to, on next Tuesday, you have the 3 boards meeting. So if we do a half hour before that.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, 2 weeks just seems.
Yeah, 2 weeks is too long.
Can I add one quick thing?
Yes, Michael.
I was just looking at my computer based on what you guys said. It looks like in addition to sending a letter to that person, we also sent the letter to other boards, letting them know that we did it. So Becky, if you dig that up letter, I think that gets to Miriam's point of just giving people a heads up.
Yeah, I think that's a smart idea again too, Michael. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to mention that the select board, yeah, emails continue.
Meaning they're still coming. Okay. Something to look forward to. It is triggering. It's really interesting.
We're going on record tonight that a letter is going to be forthcoming. If anybody asks, there's a letter that's going to be sent.
Hit the mute button, sweetheart. Hang on 1 second.
Linda has a question in just a second.
You're muted.
Linda, you're muted.
Okay, go ahead, Linda.
You're still
Muted.
You're
You're muted. We can't hear you.
mute.
okay. You have no volume.
You're unmuted. You're muted.
Hold on, Linda. Let me try. Oh, I can't unmute you either.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
Could you unmute yourself, Linda?
Did.
Maybe.
Could you email? We have no clue what you're saying. Yeah, just email me quick. Or
Becky,
check-
I'm just changing rooms, so I'm gonna put my camera down so I make no one nauseous.
What happened?
She's still muted?
Yep. Okay. Linda's asked Rita to repeat what she said.
Oh, no. I had no idea, Linda.
I think you said there's a letter a letter is going to go out. Is that what you were?
What I was saying was that this meeting is a public record, that a letter is going to be going out. So if anybody were to ask, a letter's being prepared. Essentially a cease and desist order or whatever.
Mhm.
Maybe that's the wrong word. Record asking for harassment.
Yes.
Are you all set, Linda, with that? Yeah, okay. Sorry about your connection.
I guess the only other thing I would want to say is this is so troubling to me. You know, so many people put in so much time and, you know, to the extent that we can support each other, protect each other. I just want to see that happen because it's, you know, it's hard enough being a volunteer and putting in a lot of time, but then to be attacked and lies being stated is just and really troubling. So Miriam and anybody else here who's felt personally attacked, and I felt personally attacked with absolutely no basis in truth. What I'd say is, you know,
I think it would be best to move on at this point.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
It's not easy, and we know that, Miriam. So.
All right.
All right. Shall we move on, or we need to vote on that, I'm sorry. Or no, we're doing it next meeting.
Yeah, so we're gonna meet at 5:30 on Tuesday, the whatever that is.
Okay.
The 12th.
All right. So we will review the letter then.
Okay.
Okay, I think it was town administrator updates was the next thing.
Okay, so things are going well at Town Hall. Was wonderful to be back last Tuesday. I appreciate all the Board of Health's support to all our boards and committees. It has, as different departments have faced different levels of exposure, it's just really helpful to have the Board of Health to give guidance to each department as they try to work it out. We've been holding up very well. Our departments are fully staffed. The union contract for the school is gonna start up in January. So I'll be working with the school committee negotiating team on that. The trash bag sales are through the roof right now.
We don't need solar. We've got trash bags.
People must be using the time of COVID to clean.
And people often bring up it's COVID driven that some years they've never had to get more trash bags, but with everybody at home and
Oh, that's true.
and so they really appreciate being able to get more trash bags, even if it's limited. And I really appreciate the town clerk and I take turns. We used to split the day, but because I couldn't be in town hall a couple of Mondays, it really helped. Grace is always jumping in wherever she can, and I really appreciate that. The contracts for 2 department heads are coming due this year. We have, so if you guys want to think about who will represent the select board in those contract negotiations, it'll be for the town administrator as well as the highway superintendent, except for, I'm not sure if he will be looking at more than a 3-month extension to his current contract or not. So that's a question mark, but hopefully at the next meeting, you guys can decide who wants to represent on those 2 negotiating teams. They should be very simple and straightforward meetings this year. The police union is, because there are no standing members, will only be a memorandum of understanding signed off on the union side by the union representative. And so that'll be very curtailed as well. So it's hopefully we can wrap this up by the end of January. Except for the highway superintendent, he might not be ready to talk until he knows, he hasn't decided exactly what he will do. And I don't want to rush him because I think it would be to everyone's advantage if he stayed on another year. So that's where that's at. The building committee still hasn't met. I think they were trying for a meeting this week. So I'll talk to Bob more about strategize how to get that rolling despite his lack of attendance. I believe I told you the school roof was leaking badly again. So in parallel to working on the town's own initiative for going out to bid for the re-engineering of the school roof and the construction phase, I want to recommend that we also apply one more time for the school building assistance program, even though it might not go anywhere. I think since, I think it's worth putting our hat in the ring one more time. And I hope you will consider doing that. I know it's a school committee that signs off on that one, but I think we have to keep all our options open, especially the cost is going to be significant. The cherry sheets, I think I already talked about twice, so I won't bring that up again. But I do want to tell you, the Finance Committee had a lengthy meeting where they discussed, it was more of a workshop on cherry sheets and how state funding happens. And that's a really good thing. The deeper the understanding the Finance Committee has, the better. So they are working hard. They even met during the holiday week, which usually doesn't happen. So I look forward to meeting with all three boards on next Tuesday. And that's it for my report tonight. Rita.
Had a couple of questions. So the agenda for next week is on the school budgets? Is that? Okay. So the
Only the elementary.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Only the
Elementary school.
Only the elementary. Okay. And then do we have another meeting scheduled, the 4 towns?
No, I have not heard from the region.
Okay. And then the only other thing I wanted to kind of put on our agenda at some point is to talk about annual town meeting. And I know it seems premature, but April, the end of it doesn't here before we know it. And I know last year that there was a special executive order or whatever from the governor, or maybe the legislature voted, I can't remember how it took place, that towns were able to reschedule their town meetings from their ordinarily scheduled. So, I would advocate us talking to legislators about having that same option again this year.
Rita,
Yeah.
I believe that's all under the State of Emergency Act.
Okay.
So they're still in place until the state of emergency is withdrawn.
So we
But still in
could change town meeting.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm hoping to make sure that we extend the date until we get the bids back on the roof project, because the funding for the roof potentially will be the biggest item request on the annual town meeting, at the annual town meeting.
So are you looking at a schedule now and anticipating a date in May?
For the outline was the beginning of May when we did all the timelines, but we could potentially tighten that up a little bit. But right now, town meeting is with the bylaw changes the last week in April.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is we should be thinking now about how far out we want to go. If we're going to schedule it another day to project. And the reality is that not everybody is going to have the vaccine come May 1st or May 15th. It's probably going to be early summer. So yeah, some of us might have it, but a lot of people won't. So that if we're going to do town meeting, we should be thinking about, are we going alternative location, do it outside again, and the timing / weather will have bearing on what works best. I mean, a lot of people really, and I know we got an email about this, really like the outdoor town meeting. They felt that was conducive to kind of even more participation. A lot of people could bring their kids and so forth. Obviously, it costs us more money. It's a lot more, cumbersome, I think, to do it. But I think it would be good to start projecting out dates and letting everybody know. If we're
Um,
not
yeah.
thinking it's the end of April.
Rita, to that end, I've started conversations with Grace. She needs to figure out the timing on the election side.
Right.
And it was allowed that we were able to extend that last year.
Yep.
But yeah, the elections, I think she's still running into unanswered questions about election details. So everything is like stacking up.
Yeah.
We need to, it's dominoes on trying to figure this out. So we'll keep working at it. So how about I put it on as a standing agenda item?
That would be great.
as we
And,
move
and
into-
having that information about the elections, we have a number of open seats. So, and pretty soon it's going to be time people are going to be taking out their nomination papers. So it would be good to be updated about what the plan is.
And conversations with, have been made
Linda
with,
has a question. Hold on. Linda has a question, but we still can't hear her.
and I think I was gonna say what she was gonna say. The newsletter deadlines haven't been scheduled because we need
Oh.
all that information as well.
No, that's not what she's gonna say.
You have to type it, Linda.
Linda's,
Can't hear, type it in
Put
the
it in the
chat.
chat.
Put it in the chat.
you can't text me?
I don't see a chat option either. Do we have chat shut off, Vicky?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, we removed the chat option,
Okay.
but she normally can text.
Yeah, this is weird that she,
She emailed the last time. She
I
didn't.
know. Why can't she be heard?
Her microphone might be muted on her computer.
No.
No.
It's tired.
It's saying it doesn't want to work tonight.
Actually, if anybody had to be muted. Oh, now she's calling. Good. Hello? Do you want me to put you on speakerphone?
Yeah, that works.
Wait. I gotta turn it up. 1 second. Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to tell,
We can hear you.
okay, I wanted to tell you that I talked with Grace today and Janice Gray about the newsletter.
Oh, great.
Okay.
I hadn't heard yet.
And Janice, Grace would, given that timing is so uncertain, but she wants to start with letting the community know what elected seats are open. And also because there are many new members, many new residents in town.
You're getting feedback. If maybe you need to get it off of just,
No, I think it's Becky's.
oh,
So what she wants to do is
yeah.
provide a
It's
list
not
of
mine.
the open seats. And then also because there's so many new people in town, provide some background on the boards and committees that those seats are part of through education. So we're thinking about having a due date for articles being the end of January. And then with a goal of getting the newsletter out on the last week of February. Because Janice needs time to edit and put it together, and then needs time for printing.
And signatures for people who were running for office will be, it's the end of March, is that when those are given?
That's what Grace doesn't know yet.
Yeah.
But so they'll have to do more information subsequent to when she finds out. But maybe 2 weeks or more.
Okay.
Start getting moving forward. And she'd like to do that. She'd like to get some information out to the public.
Okay.
Okay, so that can be done without us setting the date, but we could potentially set a date. Like if it's like late May, like the third week in May, we can start by looking at that and seeing how that would work for Grace. I don't think Grace can set it yet because she still doesn't have all the information. Linda, did you hang up?
No,
Okay,
no, because I have one more item.
okay. Yes, you do, the ABCC.
Yes,
Yes,
so
on the minutes.
I wanted to remind you that I'd like to consider the annual report and which you have, which I sent out with the minutes. And
Can't understand what she's saying. So can you just maybe need to tell you and
Okay, I got it. Thank you. So what she was saying was that the ABCC annual report was sent out with the minutes, and she would like you to consider approving that report so it can be sent in.
Okay.
I also just want to note that we just got an email from that individual.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay,
Ignored it.
yep.
okay, I make a motion that we approve the ABCC report as presented.
And I will second that.
And all in favor?
Carol, I.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. And while we're at it, shall we do the minutes too?
Yes.
Okay.
So I move we approve the minutes of, is it 12/22/2020?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any edits or corrections? No? Okay, all in favor?
Carol, I.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Becky, we cut you off in the middle of updates. Did you have any others?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to? Lost my agenda again. Hold on one moment. Just want to make sure there was nothing else on it.
I think you're good.
Think we're good?
So are the warrants ready to be signed?
Yes, I believe they are.
Okay.
The accountant and treasurer disappeared during the meeting.
Okay. All right.
As far as the schedule of who's gonna, you'll try to avoid each other tomorrow? Any idea when you can come in or?
Oh. What is tomorrow? I could probably come in around 11-ish.
I can work around you and Rita. I'm got some Zooms during the day, so I'm not exactly sure what that schedule looks like right now.
So
Let me put mine not until after 5, just out of caution.
And with the vote that took place, only Melissa has to come if you you two are not
right
for any reason. But
what's tomorrow's date? Tomorrow.
the
The
6th.
Yeah, April, if you're coming at 11, I can come 11:30.
Okay.
Enough time. Okay.
So I won't be until the late afternoon.
Okay. Great. Linda, I hope your technical difficulty is.
Try restarting your computer, shut it down tonight and restart it. And that's a good thing for everybody to do. We work on our computers so much now. It's easy to put it to sleep, but they do need to be shut down and restarted occasionally to clear their brain.
Sounds like a good plan.
So, and cell phones too, by the way, should be turned off and turned back on. We had instructions today at work on these are the things we should be doing. We'd have less IT calls.
I've been shutting my
Shut it down.
every day. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. At the end of the day, I shut it down.
Crazy things. Yep.
Yep. I've even restarted my internet here at home, even though I know I don't really technically have to. But sometimes things will get sluggish, and it, if your computer's sluggish, it can just go right down the system, and restarting that occasionally is also helpful. So anyway, all right. Shall we adjourn?
Yes.
Okay.
I move that we adjourn.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Carol, I.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
thank you.
Okay, be well. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Becky.
Okay, Linda, now turn on turn off your mute button now. I know. What is that? Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm glad we could see you. Good night.